The previous video explained the concept of routing, which is just one of the many ways that ASP.NET MVC applications differ from applications developed with the ASP.NET Web Forms framework. In this video, I'll explore some more differences and similarities between the two frameworks. Web Forms developers, this video is aimed towards helping you come up to speed with ASP.NET MVC much more quickly by mapping the core concepts of the framework to the concepts you're already familiar with. For those of you who don't have much experience with the Web Forms framework, feel free to skip to the next chapter. You won't be missing anything. Let's start out with a few similarities between the two frameworks. First of all, they're both built on top of the ASP.NET framework, in other words, the system.web namespace. Likewise, they both leverage the core .NET framework and its languages such as C# and Visual Basic.NET. They also both use IIS, or Internet Information Server, and the ASP.NET request pipeline. This includes things such as the core ASP.NET HTTP handlers, modules, and other components such as the configuration framework. It's also worth pointing out that they both render a response to the user, and that response is usually a form of HTML that was rendered using code and markup mixed together. Next, let's look at some of the differences between the Web Forms and ASP.NET MVC frameworks. The first difference is a difference in core philosophy. Whereas Web Forms views combine the markup and the code behind into one page, ASP.NET MVC breaks this up into very separate layers. Likewise, Web Forms URLs end up pointing to physical files on the hard drive, whereas ASP.NET MVC uses routing-based URLs that point to controllers and controller actions. Another big difference between the two frameworks is how they manage state. Web Forms has very strong state management in the form of the viewState object. You can use viewState to store objects across multiple requests. ASP.NET MVC does not offer the same automatic state management as in viewState, but it does offer similar functionality in the form of temp data, which allows you to copy data from one request to the next. If you'd like this data to live for longer than one request, you'll need to copy it again manually, however. The rest of the differences revolve around how you create your views with the two frameworks. When you're using the Web Forms framework, you can only use the Web Forms syntax, whereas ASP.NET MVC supports multiple syntaxes. You may use the Web Forms syntax under ASP.NET MVC, but it uses Razor as the default view syntax. Next, we have the concepts of master pages, user controls, and server controls that you use to render views in Web Forms. ASP.NET MVC has similar concepts, but it represents them in very different ways. It uses the concept of layouts to apply the same theme throughout a site. Finally, Web Forms offers the concept of server controls, or server-side code that executes and renders HTML. ASP.NET MVC offers the same concept, except it represents it in the form of HTML helpers. As we continue through the course, be on the lookout for these important similarities and differences between the two frameworks. I must give a word of caution here. Though they may have many of the same features, they are still very different frameworks, so don't get too comfortable and fall back to the Web Forms ways of doing things.